but I think we already have a few people watching live, so I think we're good to go. And yeah, if anyone has trouble, let me know in the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. But welcome everyone to the sixth installment of the LiveStore office hours. I remember the last one was in September, 3 months ago. Kind of felt like yesterday. Was hoping at this point to have already released LiveStore 0.4, but not quite. But we're closer than ever and have a lot of exciting updates to share. So just in case you're new to this, I'm Johannes Schickling. I'm based here in Berlin. I've been working on LiveStore for like close to 5 years now. I'm doing this under the umbrella of Over Engineering Studio, which is a product studio where I do open source research, for example, on LiveStore. But I'm also building products on top of LiveStore. And you might also know me as the founder of Prisma or the host of Local First FM. So if you're new to LiveStore, in a nutshell, it is a client-centric local first data layer based on event sourcing and reactive SQLite. What that means, it is a foundation for your app to build like data stuff on top. So it replaces traditional sync state management systems like Redux, Shotai, etc. But also replace like an API layer and database layer, giving you a new approach that is event sourcing based, like mostly oriented around user-centric applications. And it was very important for me that it's like super fast. It supports flexible syncing, like Git-inspired syncing out of the box, has great developer experience, and it's really pluggable. So it comes with platform adapters for web, Expo, Node, has different sync backend implementations, integrates with a bunch of different frameworks. So very excited about that. In a nutshell, it looks like this, that you have various clients. Those clients, in a Redux kind of way, have events that get, unlike Redux, materialized into a SQLite database, which you then can reactively query. That drives your UI. And similar to Git, you have push and pull for your data through events. And that's how all the clients communicate. So that's LiveStore in a nutshell. If you want to like learn more about it in a slightly longer version, I've recently given a talk at the VietConf in Amsterdam, which you can watch here in YouTube. But let's dive into today's agenda. I have prepared a update on version 0.4, which I'll go through in a moment. But I'm also very delighted to have 4 people with us here. One asleep. Victor is currently not here, as he is based in Australia and currently sleeping. But also here from Australia, we have Sam Goodwin, who is not yet sleeping. Thank you so much for making this happen. We should have really maybe scheduled this in a different way. So both of you could have been asleep, but we do that next time. Then we also have Igor here back. He's working on, he's giving us an update on new React API. And we have my friend Nicholas Burke here, who's been working on the LiveStore docs, particularly new tutorial. So I'm very excited about hearing about all of those today. I have prepared a few shout outs for community showcase. And I also want to share a bit of light on some ongoing contributions and some ongoing research research topics. And if we have enough time, then we have time for some open question and answers. So with that out of the way, let's dive into the 0.4 release update. And I want to start with this. Like once in a while, I look at like other projects and I look at the contribution graphs to get sort of like a sense for the health of the project. And so I've now like today opened that view for the LiveStore repo, and I was kind of astonished to see like how this year kind of like felt dramatically different compared to the years before. I've mentioned I've been working on this now for over 5 years at this point. But I think one thing that really dramatically changed things this year, like a little bit later into the year, we've like open sourced the project, but already at this point, coding agents happened, and that has really like significantly changed my velocity and abilities. And later, we have also seen more and more contributions from other people than me. For example, Igor has significantly contributed. So I'm just very excited about this. Like the velocity and momentum of the project is like something I'm really, really happy about. And yeah, I'll dive into the various topics in 0.4 in a moment. There's a pending PR for the main branch where you can see a lot of like changed files. Like GitHub has given up on counting them at this point. A lot of like lines of code changes. I guess a bunch of that is like example code, etc. But it really feels like this is like another major version of LiveStore, as we almost touched every part of the code base and made things dramatically better. So let me walk through like some of the high level changes that I'm most excited about that give you a good sense of like what's coming up with version 0.5, 0.4. One thing that just landed a couple of days ago after I got to hang out with Rich Harris in New York, and we hacked on this API in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, and managed to push it over the finish line. And I'm very, very excited what we are able to land here. This like the Svelte integration for LiveStore, I think, has been the most upvoted GitHub issue that exists in the LiveStore repo. And what we've been able to land here, I think, is really, really cool, because it's, I think, the simplest way to use LiveStore in any framework, and yet it's reactive. Like here you can basically, that's the simplest way how you can query a LiveStore instance, and you don't even need to use like a hook or something. All of that is kind of absorbed by the Svelte integration itself. And yeah, very excited about this brilliant idea that Rich came up with, based also on the work of Elliot, who presented this a little bit earlier. And I think we'll have Rich on in a future version, in a future office hours, to run us through a live demo. So very excited about this, and this is actually now something that's ready to be used. Next up, we covered that quite extensively, and apologies here, I ran out of time preparing my slides, but we covered that extensively the last time already. I just wanted to recap what we're able to improve for the Cloudflare, both the improved sync provider and as well as the client adapter. For the sync provider, we now like are fully compatible with both like all kinds of storage mechanisms that exist in the Cloudflare ecosystem, whether that is D1 for like an addressable SQLite, or the embedded SQLite database for a durable object. And you can now talk to your sync provider via WebSocket, but also through HTTP, and even talk to it directly from other durable objects. So very happy about that. Client adapter, like watch the last version of the office hours if you're curious to learn more about in depth there. But the core gist is that you, as LiveStore is client-centric, where you build a client app, for example, a React app, now you can also have a LiveStore client running on a Cloudflare durable object, for example, acting as an agent, and all collaborate on the same synced store, which is super exciting. We have a new sync backend implementation as well, based on S2. S2 is a super exciting new service and technology. I'm even wearing the hat today, which gives you streams as a building block. streams always kind of like conceptually existed, but they were never really like, maybe besides Kafka, etc. But like they always felt like way too bulky and like way too enterprise. And S2 is making that like much more approachable, very lightweight, very fast to work with. And you can now use S2 as a sync backend for LiveStore, and as like it just works. It's been super fast and a pleasure to work with. And those folks are building really cool technology. Next up, a bunch of improvements to the LiveStore DevTools. For example, the entire like database browser has gotten an overhaul. Now also supports client documents better. Just handles various kind of like embedded schemas better, etc. So all of that should feel a lot smoother. The sync system, the sync overview has been improved. In the events section, you can actually now manually commit events through the DevTools, which can be really nice for debugging, etc., and just like fixed a lot of little issues here. So hopefully that's a nice quality of live improvement. Then next up, now you can pass in a effects schema as a definition foundation for a SQLite table. So the old way of defining it still works, so you can use either or. But if you're effect pilled like me, or increasing amount of people in the LiveStore community, you can now like define your effect schema like this and just pass it in, and then the entire table is derived from that with automatic migrations, etc. And yeah, hey everyone in the chat. Hey kid, yes, I've mentioned effect. Cool. Next up, this is something I've mentioned before in the slide here. What gave me this velocity is coding agents. And I think this should be even more pronounced when you're building like with LiveStore, if you're building apps with LiveStore. So it is really important to me that like we actually improve the way how coding agents can build with LiveStore. Lee Robinson has written a really great blog post about like how he's thinking about docs, how they're structuring it, for example, for Cursor. And here in like the last chapter of his blog post, he lays out a couple of like best practices. Not all of them are yet adopted and embraced by LiveStore, but quite a lot already. So this is something that I just like shipped a couple of days ago. So the LiveStore package on NPM now actually ships with a full version of the docs as Markdown, which your coding agent now has a way easier time just like discovering and like reading. And also JS doc coverage is getting better and better, which helps coding agents a lot. LiveStore now also has a MCP server, so which you can run locally and use a couple of tools. Among others, you can actually interact. You can, through your coding agent, interact with a LiveStore system in order to simulate other clients. So you can do very cool things like in, let's say we're building this Linear Light app, you could simulate saying like, hey, please port over all issues from this other repo here. And the coding agent would just like fetch all of that and ingest it into your LiveStore system. That's possible through the MCP, but the MCP also gives you access to docs, etc. And given there's some controversies around MCP, the same thing is also possible through a LiveStore CLI. And additionally, the LiveStore docs can now be also accessed directly through curl, which returns Markdown as opposed to fully rendered HTML, which makes life for your coding agents a lot better. So very excited about this. And if you have ideas how to improve the the situation for coding agents with LiveStore, please let me know. I'm very eager to improve those things. Next up, docs themselves. We're gonna hear more about the brand new tutorial in a moment from Nicholas, but I'm very excited about this. Like we have now like multiple chapters that walks you through like step by step how you set everything up, how you can deploy it to Cloudflare, how like you read data, write data with LiveStore, how you set up syncing on Cloudflare, etc. So really excited about that, and we're gonna hear more about that from Nicholas. Overall, docs coverage has been dramatically improved. Hopefully you didn't find too many to-dos in the past in the LiveStore docs. Those were like my intentions to at least create a placeholder page that we would later fill in. And we've been making a lot of progress on that. And by we, I also mean many of you who've been contributing to LiveStore, which I really appreciate. We've been also improving the LiveStore docs infra quite significantly. One thing that kind of gets tricky when you write more and more docs is to make sure that things are up to date. Coding agents help with that, but one critical part about this is still like relying on tooling such as the TypeScript compiler. And now we're like getting to a place where we're basically type checking all of the snippets that are embedded in LiveStore, which allows you to have just much more trust in them and makes it easier for us to maintain it. Then I'm also a huge fan of just like visual understanding of more complex concepts. And for that, we're now also have more and more diagrams throughout docs, which is also really nice to work with actually now, because you can now use Mermaid, you can use a thing called D2, and you can also use TLDraw files, which automatically get compiled. So all of that should hopefully make it easier for you and your coding agents to work with LiveStore and understand it. And there's a lot more examples. So moving on from this, if you are like super eager and don't just want to use LiveStore, but actually contribute to it, that is also getting a lot better. I have worked with a lot of like early contributors to kind of understand, hey, where are there friction points? And one giant hurdle for sure is learning effect. But I think this is a double-edged sword. It is a bit of like a barrier to entry for people who want to contribute to LiveStore, particularly to the implementation of LiveStore. However, I think it's also a fantastic opportunity for you to learn effect this way. As like I think more and more things are well documented, you can use coding agents, and effect really shines in the way how LiveStore uses it, because there you have just like so many hard problems all at once. You have like complex error handling, you have stream handling, you have a lot of concurrency, you have multi-threading, etc. So if you're thinking about like deepening your effect understanding, studying the LiveStore code base might actually be very interesting. So, and that should get a lot more approachable now as we're kind of improving the code base itself to be more intuitive, better documented. Also, we have just way more tests now, which overall builds much more confidence in LiveStore actually working as intended. And particularly also helping coding agents with that work. We now have dedicated contributor docs. We have a dedicated CLI for internal workflows, which both helps contributors as well as agents. And to break things less over time, we've invested a lot of time in improved CI. So yeah, hopefully this makes life a lot easier for existing contributors and future contributors. And with that, I'll move on to our sessions today, but please give this a try. I think many of you are already using it for your app already, or you've upgraded from 0.3 to 0.4 in the dev version. If you're interested in getting like a full view on like everything that's coming up in LiveStore, please check out the changelog. But yeah, with that, with this, the last point I'll say is during the last office hours, I said maybe it's going to release around September. Clearly, that hasn't happened yet, but I think we're very close, and hopefully this becomes a Christmas present that gets shipped before the end of the year. So please continue to use it and provide feedback if you're running into any issues. And with that, we'll move on to the community presentations. And with that, I would love to welcome Sam from Australia, working on Alchemy, to the stage.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Johannes.
All right.
All right. So I'm sorry to disappoint those in the chat. It won't be Alchemy Effect today. It will be good old async alchemy. Let me share my screen. So for those that know, Alchemy is an infrastructure as code engine built in pure TypeScript. So today I thought I'd just do a very quick demo of how to deploy LiveStore with Alchemy instead of Wrangler. So let me just get a little template up. This is the standard LiveStore template. Now, what we're going to do is get rid of all of this ugly Wrangler code and replace it with Alchemy. So what we'll do is we'll first just install.
1 second. I think your screen share has vanished. Do you want to reinitiate?
Oh, no.
But we saw the Wrangler mess that you're gonna simplify.
Yeah. Ta-da!
Okay.
Can you see my screen
now? Yes. And by the way, given you're a little bit choppy, I think this is gonna be fine for the final recording that's gonna be on YouTube. So people in the chat, if you're now wondering, we will get a fully smooth version of Sam in the recording, but I think this shouldn't stop us from moving along now.
I'm a little bit of a fish out of water right now. I typically live in Seattle, but I'm visiting my parents here in Wagga Wagga, Australia, which is in the middle of nowhere, and the internet's not so good. As you can see, I'm even struggling to just install npm pack. Lovely. Okay. So this is the standard LiveStore template, and it comes with a good old Wrangler TOML. You know it's old when it's got TOML, Wrangler TOML in it. And it's also got this little Vite config here with, which I found surprising, a bunch of spawning of processes. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove all of this, and we're going to reproduce it in Alchemy. So Alchemy is just, you don't really need to do anything. You just need to install it and create a TypeScript file. We like to call it alchemy.run.ts, but nice. It doesn't have to be that file. It can just be any file. And what we'll do is we'll create an app. So I'll just import Alchemy. And all Alchemy apps start the same. You give it a name. Let's call this the LiveStore app. And then you're going to create some resources here. And should I zoom in? Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. That might be a bit better. And then after you do all that, you finalize it. So for LiveStore, what it basically is a LiveStore worker with a D1 database and a drawable object. So let's create that. We will import Vite from Alchemy/Cloudflare. So Vite is a little help around deploying Vite websites as a Cloudflare worker. And the way that you do that in Alchemy is just async function and the function. So for the effect here, just imagine async. Just imagine await up there. But in async Alchemy, you just need await resource. You give it a name, for example, it's the website. And now we just start reproducing some of these Wrangler details in TypeScript. So we'll take the entry point for the backend. Put that there. We'll also set up compatibility with Node. I know that's not in the Wrangler toml, but I did notice that I think this is necessary. And I'll also put a reference to where the assets are going to be, and we'll need to interesting part. So in Alchemy, we need bindings really easy. So let's say we want to create the WebSocket server. What we'll do is we'll just import the durable namespace function from Alchemy Cloudflare, and we'll just create the WebSocket server. So it's WebSocket server, and the class is and it is, I believe it's WebSocket server. Yeah. And put that on the as a binding. We'll just do it like this. Just and that will create a durable object. Next, we need to create the D1 database. You can see here, you've got to manage all these different UUIDs. I don't even know what this UUID is. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't work. In Alchemy, every resource is just a function, right? So we'll just import the D1 database, create an LDB. Just call that database, and put that at the bottom there. And we'll just think that that's it. So I need to log the URL out. So notice that when I do the website, that when I await this resource, I actually get all of the properties as a plain old JavaScript objects. We can just log it as the URL. So now come to my oops, sorry, I forgot one point. Okay. So I just replace rank code. I'll be rank code. So we're going to replace that with the plugin. So this little Vite plugin, just include, and then when we deploy our app Alchemy, it helps sort of facilitate the connection between them and replace all that ugly as you saw before. So now if I run Alchemy dev, you'll see that it starts to create the resources. So Alchemy is an infrastructure as code engine. Each of these little functions are resources. When you run and create a function script, all it's going to do is sort of provision the resources. So here I have my little live store. I can add some resources to it. So I should come over to my browser. I don't know. Was that it? Oh, I forgot one thing. Yay, great. The missing thing is this Vite live store sync. So you need to be able to pass into the Vite build process where the backend is. So we can just import worker and pass in a reference to the URL of this worker, and then just dev it again.
Nice. Yeah, all of the Wrangler toml stuff is like whatever. Like, is it working? Is it not working? I've lost so many hours on that, so I can't wait to adopt this.
Man, I don't know why that just failed. No, there we go. It works. So let's try again. So let me show you that it actually syncs. Oh. Oh, there we go. I did this like 20 times before I came here, and now, of course, it's going to not work. Let me just try deploying it.
There were
so you'll notice that I switched from Alchemy dev, Alchemy deploy. Alchemy deploy will actually build and upload this and create the worker and the real D1 database. So Alchemy dev is running everything in Miniflare, right? So there's no actual Cloudflare resources. It's just locally running, just like you would get with Wrangler dev.
Yeah.
And then you can easily switch to Alchemy deploy and just throw that up in the cloud. So
I mean, this makes so much sense. Like, I love using like Cloudflare primitives, but like fiddling with all of those through like a Wrangler toml file and Wrangler dev, etc. Like, it just doesn't feel nice, particularly when you like use it in combination with other things like Vite, etc. Like, and where you have just a ton of loose ends that you like need to fiddle together like in a very finicky way yourself. And like Alchemy seems to make that all like super smooth and even type safe, which is super nice.
Yeah, so the selling point is that it's programmatic, right? So like with async alchemy, we just give you async functions. You can string them together however you want, right? So another thing that you might be missing here, that if you've ever managed different environments like dev, staging, and prod in Wrangler, like this whole thing is generic to the stage. Like you can actually see
Yeah.
that there's this stage property, and you could be
Yes.
like, oh, I want to change this feature. If the stage is prod, you know,
Yes,
do something
that's my.
else, right?
I mean, I have like a long running thesis that like everything should be TypeScript, that is like somehow part of like my app in the widest sense. I'm not talking about like super low level things, but I'm talking about things like configuration or little scripts, etc. Like why are we reinventing the world for all of those? We should just like use the same language and the same benefits we enjoy for building our actual app, and this just like super seamlessly extends to a critical part here.
I know, I don't understand why you would ever want to use JSON when you have TypeScript, which is JSON plus code. You know?
Exactly.
I apologize for the demo here. It's the middle of the night right now, and also for some reason my internet is really slow here in Wagga, so it's not seeming to complete. And oh, that's why, because fantastic. My credentials are not refreshed. So you're getting a real raw demo right now. Let me just log in right now. So we also, one cool thing about Alchemy is the whole thing is OAuth. You don't need to manage your account IDs and API tokens and all that. We actually have our own client ID with Cloudflare that has access to the whole API, so we can do anything. So that's a nice little added benefit. So let me just try again. I run deploy and see if we can get through this time. And absolute last chance. dash adopt allows
it
me
wouldn't
to
be
pick up
a
resources
real
that already
demo
exist.
if you so like
Yeah.
kudos for doing it like in the middle of the night from the middle of nowhere live. So really appreciate that. And I mean the star of the show is like the alchemy.run.ts file anyway, and that has certainly like got me sold. So we should create a few PRs, send off a couple of coding agents that get rid of those pesky Wrangler TOML files and introduce Alchemy for the examples. In the interest of like keeping things somewhat on time, I have 100% confidence that the deployment will work eventually. Once you have like more packets running through your network. But given we have a few more other presentations, maybe we bring it to a finishing point. If you have any more aspects of this that you want to demonstrate.
The last thing I'll do is the great way to leave off would just be to destroy the whole thing. So how about I just do that, and I'll destroy all the resources and leave it in a nice clean state, and you can move on to the next demo. Yep.
Nice. So this certainly got me very excited about giving this a proper try for anywhere where I'm using Cloudflare, and so I'm very excited about that. Sam, thank you so much for presenting this on the extra tricky circumstances in the middle of the night with tricky internet. I really appreciate you making this work. And I'm very excited to get my hands on Alchemy. And I think we'll have a follow-up conversation soon about how you're using effect for great effect for the future of Alchemy. But with that, I'll be moving on and hand over the stage to Victor, who is currently also in Australia, and but is currently sleeping. So he has prepared a little video that I will share with you here. And hopefully that will play back fine. 1 second. So share screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, also here. Cool. Hopefully this can be seen and heard. We will listen to it for a few minutes to hear what Victor has been working on, which is a highly requested feature in LiveStore.
Hello, my name is Victor. Hannes asked me to record a little video showcasing the work we've been doing on the LiveStore event streaming API. I'm going to show a little bit where we are at the moment, what the potential use case for this functionality can be, as well a little bit short about my journey of contributing to LiveStore. So I first got interested in it because I was writing an artwork management app for visual artists and interested in the benefits from local first, found LiveStore through local first FM. And then once I got access to the LiveStore, I think it was a private beta, I began by actually contributing support for Vue. So it's currently in a different separate repository because I use Vue mostly for writing my web apps. And then helping a bit with documentation as well in relation to that. And I got into event streaming because I was interested, or I'm working on solutions for syncing files using LiveStore as the sync engine, a package that kind of lives on top of LiveStore, but uses LiveStore to actually handle the syncing. But then some actions need to be taken on certain events. And then I found they're not yet implemented yet in LiveStore. And Johannes suggested I have a look at a PR that he had already started. He said it would take him a couple of days, and that was, I think, 3 weeks ago now. But it's been an extremely enjoyable process. I found it extremely enjoyable working on this kind of problem space and learning more about effect. LiveStore, I think the one thing I could say to round this off is that when you're building an application that uses LiveStore, contributing a bit and getting a bit better understanding of like how it works under the hood can be extremely useful for actually feeling more in tune with what's going on, like in terms of, it's not like it's a common CRUD server client database. Understanding how it works takes away some of the kind of fear of using it in a real application because you actually have a better understanding, a better grasp of how it functions. So what we're seeing here is a performance streaming test app, which I found very useful developing this feature. Here we have 10,000 events loaded into LiveStore, and if we start streaming them, we get 10,000 in about 2.5 seconds. So this is when everything is synced. Currently, we only support streaming events that are confirmed by the sync backend. In the future, we want to support also on a session and leader level, but that requires some careful consideration on how to handle rebasing. So this is like our first approach at it. Now, if you reset the harness, and so now we have nothing, and we start the event stream, and then we start seeding 500, we'll see that it goes quite slow in the beginning. That's because it's a lot of events at the time, and it's being pushed to the sync backend. And at this point, when it goes still faster but still slow, it's when they are being confirmed by the sync backend. And we can actually see that if we look at the Grafana graph here, we can see, okay, here they're being pushed to the sync backend, and here they're slowly being confirmed. It happens a bit in parallel, but generally that's what's going on. Yes. So it's only when you try to really push it to its limits, which is what we want to try to do to maximize performance, that we're seeing these areas of optimization. That's where we're at the moment. It's a store.events.
So I will pause this at this point and just show a little bit more of like the context of this. I'm extremely thankful for like the great work that Victor has been working on here. Let me see that I can stop the streaming. I'm seeing 1 second. Bring the call back here. Okay. Somehow Chrome played a little trick on me. 1 second. I'll share the full screen here. Entire screen. So the context for this, why I'm super excited about this, is we talked about this like during a couple of like previous calls already. For example, when we're looking at the CF Chat Cloudflare durable object example, here we are on the server side, like listening with a LiveStore client to updates that are happening. And the way how we currently do that is by having a query that just like listens for this table, and we subscribe to that query. However, what would be way more elegant to do here for incoming messages for a chat app is that we could do something like this directly, where we could say we're basically listening to particular kind of events where we're filtering for like some of the messages, etc., and then reacting to those events directly, like something like this. And this API here was stubbed, but was not actually implemented. So you see here is not yet implemented, but planned soon. Tons of people wanted access to this, but it wasn't there. Victor was one of those, and he is the change that he wants to see in the world, and started working on it, and has been making a ton of progress, and it was a true joy collaborating with him or working on this feature. So I'm very excited about this. Thanks a lot, Victor, to make this happen. And we will now move on to the next presentation from another amazing contributor, Igor, who has been working on the new React API for LiveStore. And you're muted.
Hey guys, so I'll try to be quick so we have time for everything. So I'm quickly just gonna share my screen, and then we will go right into it. So entire screen. Whoa. There we go. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So there is a new API that is coming to LiveStore. It's been already in the experimental mode, like available for maybe a few weeks or so, or maybe even more, like maybe 2 months even, which is the multi-store API. So this is the current API at the moment when you're using LiveStore with React. You have the LiveStore provider component, and there you pass your store configuration, which has to include at least the schema, adapter, and also like the random props, so like the loading and error state. And then when you want to consume that store, you use the uStore hook, which gets us the store that's being provided by that component. And then from the store, you can query data in that store. So there is one store at the moment per app. We can't have multiple elements stored in a way that they don't like conflict with each other in the component tree. There is no also lifecycle management, like for loading, unloading store, like dynamically. And also it uses random props. So instead of like using like suspense or error boundaries. So what does all of this matter? What is the issue with this? So now let's say you want to support like partial synchronization. Browsers have like memory limits, and for an app like Linear, like an issue tracking app that has like hundreds of thousands of issues maybe, or maybe like an email client that would be even more like an app that would have a lot of data to load in, we can't fully load that data locally in the browser. So we have to segment, to partition that data somehow. And then there is also like the multi-workspace apps where sometimes you like logged in into your team workspace, so then you like your open source workspace, like on Slack or Notion, and you want to like to switch between those different workspace and have all those data like isolated between each other. And so that's why we like introduced this new API. We want like to allow users like to be able to have multiple stores, which would help for both of these use cases. For partial synchronization, each store would be like your partition of data, and it would be like pretty much also the consistency boundary. And so the new API will allow for that. And those are like pretty much the overview of the API. We have store options, which is just a function that helps us define some store configuration that can be reused in multiple places across the app. There is the store registry class that is a class that will hold all your store instance and manage the caching for it, and also the cache eviction. And then we have a store registry provider. You only need to use one for the app. So you put that at the root of your application, and that will provide the store registry to the whole app. And then you will be able to register your store into that registry. But that will be done implicitly. We will see that soon. And then you have this uStore hook, which is the same name that the current one, but the behavior is different. It accepts like some options, and those options are like the configuration for the store. And then there is the uStore registry, which allows you to get the registry directly so that you can do things like preloading. So I'm first gonna show how it will work for like an app, like a simple app that has only one store with the new API. You have the store options here API that I just mentioned. You pass the configuration like before, the schema adapter, but you also have to specify the store ID. Before it was like implicitly created like as default. Now we require it as explicitly because it's actually a pretty important concept in LiveStore. And then in the app at the root, as I just mentioned before, you have the store registry provider that you provide, and there you provide like the registry. And here you can put like some default configuration that we apply to our store instance. And then like in a component, somewhere in your app, you have uStore, where you pass those work store options that you created somewhere before in your app. And similar to before, you just query that store. So for a single store, doesn't change much here. The main thing that changes is that now the loading state and the error states are managed with the React suspense boundary and React error boundaries. That allows for like more composability of like loading and error states and more flexibility on where you want to place those states in your app. They're like not directly tied to the provider, but you can decide where it makes more sense pretty much for the state to occur. Well, I skipped that, so I can go direct to the other one. So now this is for multiple store. We still have that workspace store like in the previous slide, but now I'm adding here a new store type, which will be for issues. So in my complex app here that has a lot of data, I decide like to split up all issues into different LiveStore stores. And here it's a function that receives an issue ID, so that we can actually, like a factory function, we can like construct here the store option using the issue ID. And here also configure like an unused cache time. By default, a store is kept like in memory after it's unused, meaning no components like subscribe to it. It's kept in store like for 30 seconds. Here I've set it like to 5 seconds intentionally because I'm using this issue store for like a list of issues, and imagine that list is like infinitely scrollable. I want like the issue store like to get evicted pretty quickly, like in 5 seconds, because 30 seconds, it could mean like way too many stores that are kept in memory. So that's why I'm giving like a low value here. And here you can see that I have uStore that now can accept as well as issue store options. And you can have many of those uStore across your app that sometimes we will use like the issue store, sometimes we will use the workspace store. And the nice thing now with the suspense error boundaries, before like this loading state like will be tied directly to where you like the store like is initializing. Now, for instance, here, since it's not tied to where the store is initialized, you can have like one loading state and one error state for the whole list instead to have like for each issue store. But you can also have for each store. That's the flexibility you have. Again, I forgot to do that. And so this is pretty much the stuff that I've just mentioned. So each store instance is fully isolated from each other. That's what I meant by like the consistency boundary. There is also automatic caching. So same store ID, if you use it like in multiple places, you have multiple uStore for the same store ID, it will reuse that one. And then there is also the automatic memory eviction, which is configurable with that unused cache time that I showed previously. All right, so a quick demo. On the repository of LiveStore, you can find this multi-store app and the examples. This only shows like some simple patterns of what the multi-store unlocks. So here, that's a single store, nothing complicated here. We have a workspace store, And then if I go directly to multi-instance, here we have like 3 parallel issue store. So they're all using the same use store, and they're loading like one side to each other in parallel, but all of them with their own loading state. And here we have a independent store, like, so there's a workspace store here and an issue store here. And then in that workspace store, we have this issue store here that we can preload. So here, when I do just over here, we're not gonna see any loading state. It shows up directly because I actually preloaded it on hover. And now if we get out of the page, come back here, you can see there are no loading state. That's because they're all cached in the store registry. And as a quick example of that preloading that I just mentioned, here we have the code for like the pretty much this whole view here, which is a workspace store that we're using here, where we can like create an issue. So that create an issue which creates also an issue store, and then the preloading that I just showed here that's pretty much this function here where we preload, and we can even like overwrite the cache time so that we can have like a value that's more convenient to like this specific use case. So that's pretty much it. So the API is already available currently like on LiveStore React under like an experimental path, but it will replace like the current API in the upcoming 0.4 release. But feedback is always appreciated. If you have used it before, or if you're looking to use it and something that's not clear that we could make it more clear, please just reach out, send a message on Discord. We're always here always open to feedback. Thank you, guys.
This is amazing. Fantastic work, Igor. It's been really fun working with you on this for the past couple of weeks. And I'm really excited how it's coming out. I think it kind of gives you the best of both worlds in that regard, that Suspense is like a React API that is more like used for very async things. And for LiveStore, there's one async thing, which is like the initial opening of the store. And from there on, every query is resolved synchronously. So I think it gives you the best of both worlds, where you have like your async boundaries where you work with multiple stores, but everything is synchronous from there onwards, and you can like compose it in a very React idiomatic way. So very excited about this. I think it addresses like a whole group of like common points of feedback that we've gotten over the months. So very, very cool work. So to keep things somewhat on time, Nicholas has mentioned that he has a hard stop at the top of the hour. So we have now 5 minutes to hear about the new LiveStore tutorial. So thanks so much again for everyone who's presenting today. And Nicholas, thanks so much for like your wonderful work on the new LiveStore tutorial.
Thank you, Johannes. Yes, I want to give a quick overview of how this tutorial even came about. Because a couple of weeks ago, I set out to build an app, and I wanted to build it in a local first way. I've been chatting with Johannes about LiveStore a lot, wanted to use it, and I kind of dove into these getting started examples. And now I would call myself a mediocre developer. I'm not a super experienced engineer. I have some good foundations. And I found the Getting Started projects here somewhat overwhelming in terms of all the stuff that was going on and that was happening in there. So what I did, I kind of peeled off all the layers, all the noise that actually wasn't part of the core of the functionality, and came down to the minimum and then rebuild it back up. And then, because for me, teaching is always the best way of learning, I wanted to write a tutorial about this process. About building a LiveStore app really step by step and from the ground up. And I chatted with Johannes, and then we said it would be a good idea to add this kind of tutorial to the LiveStore docs. So this really is a tutorial that's all about education and teaching you the fundamental concepts and workflows of LiveStore. If you really just want to get started quickly, you don't really bother about all the explanations, then you can use the starter project instead. And essentially, the 6 chapters that I've written here follow these steps here. So we are first setting up just a plain React project with Vite and Tailwind. And the important part here is, and here I'll go through the tutorial, I just like do a quick walkthrough of everything. So that's the UI of the app, and it's implemented in a way that every React developer will be able to relate to, because it's just using local state. Everything is stored in local state, but that also means, of course, that when we refresh the app or restart the server, then all the data vanishes that we've added. So throughout the tutorial, we're gradually going to introduce LiveStore and replacing this local React state with persisting LiveStore state. We also deploy the app to Cloudflare using Cloudflare as a sync backend. So here is a step that just has the instructions for doing that. And in chapter 3, we're getting to the meat of the tutorial, where we are actually introducing LiveStore, installing all of the dependencies, creating our first LiveStore schema, our first events, and then also the LiveStore worker that's needed for the syncing. We're setting up the adapter and the LiveStore provider. This is the one that's going to transition into the multi-store API that Igor just showed. Then we're replacing our React code, the state that we're using here, the local React state, with LiveStore queries. That's the first part. Here's what it looks like. We can now refresh the to-dos afterwards, and they persist. If we deploy, we actually get the same benefit of being able to run multiple browsers and seeing the syncing happening at the same time as well. Then we introduced the sync backend, where we're using a durable object from Cloudflare, integrating it with LiveStore, and configuring the Wrangler TOML, which you can replace with Alchemy. I feel like this tutorial is already outdated with the single store API and with Wrangler TOML. So many better options already that we've just seen in this call. And then we're also expanding the business logic by adding the option to complete a to-do. We're adding this function of toggling a to-do that's being triggered. So this is the UI that we're building for that. And then finally, we are also introducing a client document. So first, just a UI element to render tabs here. We've got this, and then we replace the use state with use client document in our React code to make this more readable. And then I also went on to take this basic app that I've built there and evolved it in 2 different ways. So one, I've built a syncing demo on top of it, where I introduce a Node.js server that's syncing to Cloudflare, and then also an auth demo, and you can find these on my GitHub repository here. All right, Johannes, thank you so much for hosting me here.
Thank you so much for presenting. I know you got to jump now, but thanks
Yes.
so much for all of your work and for presenting it here. Really fantastic work. I think it's going to help people a ton.
Awesome.
Overall, we are also at time. I will share a few more things that I'm very excited about before we're wrapping up. So I will share my screen again here. So those are just some ongoing things that are currently in development through mainly driven through external contributions, that I'm very, very excited about. I mentioned the Svelte integration together with Elliot and Rich, but there's also some ongoing contributions to overhaul the solid integration for LiveStore. additionally to supporting multiple stores, live store instances, for example, in React, which the same pattern will be adopted also by Solid and Svelte. There is a new pattern that we've been also thinking about for quite a long time. And now Andrew from the community has stepped up to start working on supporting multiple state targets for LiveStore. This will be a much broader conversation, so I'll just tease it here. But right now, the event sourcing architecture of LiveStore is always materializing the events into SQLite. But in theory, we could have entirely different state targets than SQLite. So people have been asking, okay, how can you integrate LiveStore with XState, for example, or integrate LiveStore with like just having an arbitrary JavaScript update object kept up to date, etc. And this is what this work will unlock. So we'll hear more about that in the future. So I'm very, very excited about this. We saw Victor's work on the Events API. We also just heard that Nicholas, for example, is exploring new auth patterns. A lot of those things I think are like kept coming up over the years as like hotly requested aspects, and I'm very, very excited that now together with the community we're working on it. And then also looking a little bit more into the future, there's two topics that are more like in a research stage where we're making good progress on. Igor has mentioned it, I think, in a previous office hours, where we want to now look into how can we bring the event sourcing architecture of LiveStore to the next level by supporting CQRS as a pattern by introducing a commands abstraction into LiveStore as well, and also to make it more scalable and address the like infinitely growing log of events through compaction. And so those are the topics that we're going to look into next. So with that out of the way, if you're interested in contributing in any way, whether docs, examples, helping with testing, extending LiveStore further, please get in touch. This is one of the things I'm most excited about in regards to LiveStore, is like how I'm able to help a small but growing group of contributors work on LiveStore, which I'm very happy about. So I don't think we have time for questions, so we'll cover those next time, hopefully with more time. But thank you so much for joining. The next office hours will be in 3 months. You can join here on this Luma link. And if you use LiveStore and you enjoy using it, maybe consider sponsoring the project. But thank you so much. See you next time.